almost busted in Laredo, but for reasons that I'd rather not disclose.
I smoke pot, and I like it a lot. Hi, this is Willie Nelson. I learned a long time ago that marijuana is a lot safer to use than alcohol. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the responsible use of marijuana by adults. It's time we stopped arresting and started respecting responsible marijuana smokers in America. And to learn what you can do to help, please contact NORML at www.norml.org or call toll-free at 888-67-NORML.
The show was long and we were just sitting there, and we'd come to play and not just for the ride.
And distributed by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws in Washington, D.C. This is your daily audio stash, the growing truth about cannabis. Welcome to the most popular audio podcast regarding marijuana in all of America and all the world, featuring interviews with scientists, politicians, doctors, prohibition policy activists, regular cannabis consumers, musicians, and NORML staff and NORML's board of directors, along with music and comedy no other podcast can offer. You can always find out more about the show at our website, normalaudiostash.com. We're ending marijuana prohibition with education, one listener at a time. Welcome back to the Audio Stash. Today it is Friday, May 25th. I'm your host, Chris Goldstein. Take a moment to join us at NORML to end marijuana prohibition in America. Just visit NORML.org. We have a great Friday show for you here today, folks. We'll speak with Steve Bloom with our CelebStoner.com update. Lots of celebrity news going on this week. And we'll also speak with comic Rob Cantrell. Rob is up there in New York City. He's got a show called The Chronic Comedy Show. Goes up every month in New York City. Next one is coming up on June 12th. And today we'll talk to Rob about his own run-in. You know, we've highlighted the marijuana in public view ordinance arrests in New York City with Dr. Andy Gola, but Rob actually fell prey to that policy just a few months ago, and it was highlighted at CelebStoner.com. Rob will tell us about his experience with the New York City Police here on the Audio Stash today. We've also got some comedy from Rob. He performed at the Comics Comedy Club there in New York for an epilepsy benefit, and we've got some audio from that show. It's all here on the Audio Stash today. Let's start things off with our CelebStoner.com update.
I want to be famous. I want to wear minks and satins and pearls.
Each Friday here on the Audio Stash, we get to check in with the man who has his finger on the pulse of famous folk who enjoy a toke, Steve Bloom at CelebStoner.com. Steve, welcome back to the Audio Stash today.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
Doing very well here today, man. Very happy it's Friday again. Looking forward to a long weekend. So let's dive right into another busy week of Celeb Stoners out there. Let's start with Method Man. He's a frequent guest there at High Times Magazine, and unfortunately, he was arrested this week at a bridge stop. Tell us what happened there.
Well, actually, he was arrested very close to home. I live in Brooklyn, and so was Method Man. And actually, he was arrested at the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, which connects Manhattan and Brooklyn, heading south. And Method Man lives in Staten Island, I believe. He's from Shaolin, as the Wu-Tang Clan like to call Staten Island. Method Man is the lead rapper, or one of the main rappers, probably the most famous of all the rappers besides Old Dirty Bastard in the Wu-Tang Clan. And so he was driving his Navigator. It wasn't too late, and he pulled up to the token booth, and apparently smoke poured out. when he rolled down his window. At least that's what the police said. They also said that he had his inspection sticker was not up to date, so that was not valid. And they tend to pull you over, when you don't have a valid inspection or registration sticker. So there was sort of two strikes there. Pulled him over, and he had a couple of rolled blunts. He had about an ounce of pot in the vehicle, and he was arrested on several charges. Charges for criminal possession of marijuana, unlawful possession of marijuana, operating a motor vehicle under the influence, and driving an uninspected vehicle. So, it's not a huge surprise. Here's someone who's, advocated marijuana in High Times and elsewhere on his albums over the years. He recently was awarded a Doobie Award, a High Times Music Award at the South by Southwest Music Festival for Best Hip Hop Artist for last year. We gave him at Celeb Stoner. He was voted a top Celeb Stoner. So it's not a big surprise that he's a smoker, and perhaps not even a big surprise that he might get arrested. But, what I want to say about Method Man, and I really feel bad for him, but, he broke, kind of all the rules. When you pull up to a token booth, you have to not have smoke billowing in your car, number one. Number two, if you're a stoner, you can't drive a vehicle with an inspection sticker that's out of date. And thirdly, any stoner in his or her right mind would have Easy Pass. So you don't even have to run through the token booth and face a token, clerk, so that they can look at your stickers and they could smell what's in your car. So he batted 0 for 3 on that one, and I'm not saying he deserved it by any means, but to not get arrested, you have to not give them the reason to pull you over, and you put yourself into a vulnerable place when you do things like that. And Method Man was vulnerable. They stopped him, pulled him over, and he'll have to deal with the consequences.
Well, hopefully this will play out easy for him in court, but, it's so close to an ounce there, which could catch some trouble in New York.
I don't think it's that bad. It really depends. It might have crossed over the 1 ounce limit. I'm not exactly sure. I've heard a figure of 38 grams, but I'm not really sure the amount. It was sort of announced that it was approximately an ounce. And in New York, decriminalization, is under an ounce. So, he shouldn't have too much of a problem unless the amount was just a little bit over, and then it kind of goes into a criminal sort of mode. The other thing is, smoking in public or smoking in a vehicle, that's some other stuff that doesn't really probably fall under the decriminalization law, and that's where all the arrests have happened in New York over the years, where people smoke in public. They can get arrested for that, but you wouldn't get arrested for just possessing. Say you were stopped and you were searched for some reason, they found an ounce of pot on you. That should be a summons, and you should be able to, go to court and pay it or pay it in the mail. But in this case, he had a multiple, charges against him. So, most likely he'll just get a fine and probably some sort of probation and maybe some drug testing.
Righto. Now at celebstoner.com this week, Steve, you have some celebrity eye candy going on in relation to another story. One of, as you say, the stoner starlets, Misha Barton. She was caught by the paparazzi token again this week, and you have some nice pics of Misha up there.
Yeah, one more time for Misha. It was only about a couple of months ago when she was photographed smoking in her car in L.A. We understood that, she might have been receiving marijuana from a medical club out there because she was seeing a guy named Cisco Adler at the time, who is a member of or has a medical card, and he's been seen coming in and out of dispensaries in California. So, so that occurred where she was just in her car, whether she was driving or just sitting, it was unclear. But now, and she also, by the way, joined a lot of the stoner starlets who went to Coachella, the music festival, at the end of April. Drew Barrymore, Cameron Diaz, Paris Hilton, who was photographed there smoking pot. So a lot of the stony ladies were there. And now she was at the Cannes Film Festival, and, pretty much out in the open. She was on a yacht, and I guess, some photographer was able to sort of, zero in on her, and she has a joint in her mouth that is rolled thick at the end. It's got a twist, so it, it could be a cigarette, but most likely it looks like a joint. And, with her record now, it seems like, most likely it is marijuana. So that was sort of, I would say, one of the hottest photos floating around the web yesterday. It popped up on TMZ, then Celeb Stoner, grabbed it, and we published it, and I see it, kind of everywhere now. So it's a very popular photo. And so what I did to, show a little bit more about, Misha. At Slipstoner, we published the 2 smoking shots. Plus, there was another shot recently, if you're interested, a lot of the photos on the web, involve women's breasts and when they kind of fall out of their clothing or malfunctions or things like that, or what they call nip slips. Although the photo I have is not that. It's tantalizing. And yet another shot also when she was doing a little shopping, and another kind of like just pretty shot of her. So I just did a little bit of gallery for all the fans of Misha Barton.
Now again, Steve, recently we've seen Cameron Diaz, Drew Barrymore, even Paris Hilton, all these female A-list celebrities smoking pot out there. Does this kind of indicate a more relaxed attitude about it in Hollywood now?
It's hard to really tell what's going on because, these are A-list, female celebrities, like we said, Drew Barrymore, Cameron Diaz, Misha Barton, Paris Hilton, all, big names. Anytime they're in the news, there'll be headlines. And for some reason, all of them at once over the last 4 or 5 months have been seen smoking in public. And, here are women who are very aware of the paparazzi and, know when to, not do things, too obvious or too brazen to get themselves into trouble, and maybe when to take advantage of it so they can get some publicity. So they don't seem to be that concerned, that the prying eyes of photographers keep, peering into their lives. And recently it's been all these women, as opposed to famous guys. It seems like the famous guys get arrested, like Snoop Dogg and Willie Nelson and Method Man and David Faustino, whoever it may be, but the women seem to be slipping through the cracks. Maybe the police don't really want to go after them. They're just too pretty. So I don't know. But, it's nice to see that they're, stepping forward to some degree. Whether they're doing it on purpose or not, it's unclear. But they are getting a lot of publicity. I don't see them complaining and saying, oops, I regret this, and issuing, disclaimers. So they seem to be accepting that this is what we do in our lives. It's not such a bad thing. Most of them live in California, so, the laws are, a little more tolerant out there, especially when it comes to medical use. And probably maybe a few of them have medical cards or access to people with medical cards. So they probably just think it's kind of quasi-legal. So what's the big deal? And they're right. What is the big deal?
Also this week, Steve, you offered a story about Dr. Todd Mikaria, and, we had an audio memorial for the father of medical marijuana here on the Audio Stash this Wednesday. But, Steve, tell us about your interactions with Todd.
Dr. Todd was one of the greats. There's no question he's a medical pot pioneer. According to Paul Armentano's story today, and that's posted at hightimes.com, he wrote more than, I believe he says he wrote more than 9,000 medical recommendations. He wrote so many that he got into trouble, that the state started to look at him and see, hey, here's one guy who keeps, who you can readily go to. And but Todd did that, I'm sure, because he believed that, in every case, somebody had a reason. I'm sure Todd wouldn't have let anybody through who didn't have a good reason. But, reasons, can be, simple reasons like stress or insomnia or a certain pain, problem that somebody might have, as opposed to like a really bad, chronic ailment, such as, cancer or AIDS or MS and things like that. But I did know Todd. Dr. Todd, as everybody lovingly called him. I live in New York, and he lived in the Bay Area, so I hadn't really seen much of him over the years. But when I first got involved in this marijuana legalization movement, when I first started working for High Times in the late 80s and early 90s, I met Dr. Todd, and I got to know him fairly well in those early days, at least for me. He had been involved for years already as it was, but, he was a guy who just was around the scene. He was very friendly with the Cannabis Action Network people, Debbie Goldsberry and all her friends, and that's kind of how I got to know Dr. Todd. And I just remember him being around a lot, and also at the NORML conferences, he generally would be there, and just a really, really a sweet, humble, low-key man. He wasn't the kind of guy who was loud. You almost wouldn't even know he's in the room, but his presence was much greater than that, and he had almost an aura about him that people would just go to Dr. Todd and ask questions, and he was just a great man. It's very sad to see that he passed away, and I understand he passed away from cancer. At the High Times magazine Grow America a couple of years ago, which I was editor of, we did a story. Peter Gorman actually wrote the story, and probably one of the last excellent feature stories written about Dr. Todd, and we called him Dr. Pot, and we did a cover story really more or less about him, where it was Dr. Pot with a big medical bag with pot pouring out, and he was sort of the centerpiece article. So I'm very proud that we did that, and he's just someone people should know more about now that he's passed away.
Indeed. And to round things out today, let's talk some sports news, and not Ricky Williams, though, but a team comprised of and representing stoners out there, the High Times Bong Hitters, and you guys are off to a mighty strong start this year, undefeated 3-0.
Hey, yeah, thanks for letting me talk about the Bong Hitters, my pride and joy. I coach the High Times Softball Bong Hitters, and we've been playing since 1991, and this year we started a league, the first time that we've actually had a formal league called the New York Media Softball League, and we're 2-0 in play so far. We're 3-0 overall. One of the games we played was not a league game. We've won our first 3 games. We beat Rolling Stone, WNYC, local radio station here in New York, and Trader Monthly, which is a stocks and bonds type trade-oriented business magazine. So we're just off to a good start. We haven't killed anybody. We haven't blown anybody out. The scores have been 8-7, 11-4, and 9-6, but we've been solid. We have a good way of coming back from being down. And this game this week that we were playing against NYC, they scored 2 in the first, and then we came back with 4 runs in the next few innings and took a 4-2 lead and gradually added on to that lead. But NYC came back with 2 runs in the 6th and then the top of the 7th, and they had the tying run on base when we were able to sort of end their rally. So, good competitive softball. We're looking forward to the season as it goes on. We're playing other teams like Wall Street Journal, Business Week, DC Comics. Those are teams that are in our league, and there's the 6 teams: High Times, DC, Wall Street, Business Week, Trader Monthly. So, looking forward to the competition. We go out there and we usually bring out twice as many players as the other teams because we have so much enthusiasm. This league this year is very specifically co-ed. In the past, it's been co-ed, but sometimes teams would maybe bring 1 woman or even none. It's like, oops, this year they can't do that, and there's penalties within the league if you don't play co-ed. So, it's a little more organized, and we like it that way. And, we're giving it our shot. Hopefully we'll win the title come September.
Very good, Steve. Right on. Well, thank you again for joining us here this Friday for our CelebStoner.com update here on the Audio Stash.
Hey, thanks for having me, as always.
Thanks again, Steve. Steve Bloom is the man with his finger on the pulse of famous folk who enjoy a toke. He writes about it all at the website CelebStoner.com. We have links to it up on our website every day, and you can catch Steve every Friday right here on the Audio Stash.
What's up, guys? This is Miss High Times 2007, and you're chilling with us here at the NORML Podcast.
Next up on the Audio Stash today, we have a great guest for you here today. You've seen him on Last Comic Standing, the late-night TV shows. He's been performing in the Marijuana Logs on stage and in his own stand-up comedy act on both coasts and almost everywhere in between. He's got a new pot-centered comedy show each month in New York City called Chronic Comedy. It's a great pleasure to welcome comedian Rob Cantrell here to the Audio Stash today.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Hey, it's great to speak with you today, Rob. I heard from Steve Bloom that the Chronic Comedy Show last month was absolutely hilarious and a great event to go to. We're going to play some stand-up you did in New York City for the epilepsy benefit here in a few minutes. But, Rob, tell us how long you've been using marijuana as context in your work.
I've always been connected to NORML. I think I did a fundraiser in Hollywood, actually, that was involved with Tenacious D and Bill Maher in 2003, and I started my comedy in San Francisco in the Bay Area, and I think I started smoking pot in college, so I guess that's the timeline right there. But I've always I always thought that pot should be legal in this country, and I think it's more of an environmental issue, and as well as a human rights issue, and so those are the two things. It's very much, pretty much prevalent in my acts throughout it. Is that I think people, should, lighten up and open up their minds and open up their consciousness to, at least, letting it be legal in this country. It could save so many problems in terms of, the money that's generated through it. We could save New Orleans right now with the money through marijuana. There's not that many jobs. We can get back to farming in this country. It's just something that I feel strongly about. It's just something that's ingrained in me for some reason.
And Rob, you had an interesting experience this year in New York City. You fell prey to the marijuana in public view ordinance that we've highlighted here on the Audio Stash. If you would, Rob, tell us about that experience.
Yeah, man, it was really a scary thing. I'm not the type of the dude that gets arrested every other week or ever, but I did get arrested for smoking a joint with a professional violinist in the Lower East Side. It was in May, and it was after a comedy show. So this whole thing was really kind of almost got me very serious about the marijuana issues. What happened to me was I did a show in the Lower East Side, this place called the Parkside Lounge, and it was a couple of the writers from the Colbert Report. There was a couple bands. There was like this rapper in a clown suit. It was a really funny show, really goofball, just way out there. And the guy from the band was a professional violinist, and I had some stuff in my act that I talked about taking violin lessons when I was young, and I sucked at it. And he loved it, and he smoked. He was like, "Hey, you want to go smoke a joint around the corner?" And it was a beautiful night. It was just getting warm in New York, and we went around this small corner and was just walking down the street, and we were finishing a joint, and these two plainclothes cops came right on us. And I dropped the joint, and they were like up against the wall, and I'm not used to being around police, So I started acting like I just graduated from a southern, military school. I'm like, "Sir, ma'am, sir," and I'm starting to salute them, and they're scaring the hell out of me because they're all in my face, and I'm just I'm a hippie at heart, and I'm with this professional violinist, like we're not doing anything, and but they decide to cuff and stuff us. And so they put the handcuffs on me. I said, "You can't believe you're doing this." And all they found was a clogged one-hitter that I had on me. And they put me in the back of the van and took me to the main holding cell in the Lower East Side. This is Friday night in New York.
Wow.
And this is just for a roach. And it wasn't really it was a back street, just walking down the street. In New York, this is the Lower East Side. This isn't like the Upper West Side. This is like Kerouac and Warhol. You should be smoking joints out on the corner and staring at the stars. And this is 2007, so it was just getting more and more angry in my mind. But it's not me being mad at the police. It's me being mad at the laws. But they took me downtown. They put me in a cell, and I had to call my girlfriend to get my iPod. My girlfriend's like, the nicest girl in the world. She makes cookies for coworkers. She doesn't pick her boyfriend up from jail. And so I had to call her up on the phone, and I'm like, "Ann," it's the middle of the night. I'm like, "Ann, I love you so much, and I want to marry you. But first you got to come down to jail and get my iPod." And so she came down to the jail and picked me up, and picked up my iPod. I had to go to the main holding cell, and this is the trippiest thing: is that I was stoned going to the main cell in New York, and on the radio comes "Welcome to the Machine" by Pink Floyd on the cops' radio, and all the cops were smoking cigarettes and talking about how they're getting drunk right after work too, and I don't drink, so the whole thing is just going through me like this is just some Twilight Zone thing, man. And I really had to go to the main holding cell at 4:30 in the morning. I had this red sweatshirt on and these big, thick glasses, and I'm going to the main cell in New York, so it was kind of a scary thing. They're like, you got to watch your back. So I'm talking to the violinist like, "Yo, man, you got to watch my back." That was my partner in crime, was the violinist. And I kept my humor throughout the whole thing, Chris, because I know I didn't do anything wrong, and I know I'm not a violent person, and I know I didn't have a record. And I know they really didn't have much on me, but they just brought me in just to hold me for like 17 hours.
Wow.
But it was sketchy. Like I was walking down the hall. I mean, there was just, there was two guys that looked like 50 Cent right in front of me. There was like a whole dollar standing right in front of me, locked up, ready to go into the cell. And then there's this one Rastafarian dude that eyes me up, and he's like, "Yo, I found him. There's Waldo." Everybody in the jail starts laughing, and I start laughing as well. And luckily, I have taken meditation. I'll talk to anybody that meditation will get you through a lot of these, situations where you just need to calm down and slow down and figure out. So I just started meditating on the sun, and all the beautiful places I've been in this world, and all the beautiful times that I had been in this world, and I just had to go through the process, kind of like a digestive system. But they spit me out 17 hours later, and it was just brutal, man. It was really brutal. And the funny thing is I was on Wednesday, I went out on Saturday. I was flown to Chicago to perform in the Marijuana Logs to fill in for Arj Barker, and I was with Tony Kameen and Doug Benson, and they cut out a whole portion of the show for me to tell this story. So I'm just warning people, smoke indoors. These guys are after us this summer for some reason.
And definitely be careful about smoking pot in public there in New York. Also, folks, we have links to Rob's website and his MySpace page on our website today at normalaudiostash.com. Rob, let's get to some audio from you on stage here. This is from the epilepsy benefit at the Comics Comedy Club. Here's our guest today, Rob Cantrell. We have links to him at normalaudiostash.com.
Going. The next guy I'm bringing up here is a good friend of mine and a hilarious comic who it's a real treat to watch every time. You've seen him on Last Comic Standing. You've seen him on Comedy Central. He's got a show here May 8th that you definitely want to check out. Put your hands together for Rob Cantrell, everybody.
Keep it going for John Mulaney, everybody. All right. Checking out a comedy show. Good. This is what you should be doing. Still got friends. I got these friends. They're still calling me up. People still go to strip clubs. My friends are calling me up. Rob, let's go to strip clubs. Oh, fucking no. I don't like going to strip clubs. Never feel satisfied or content. Always walk out mad and horny. Thinking to myself, man, I just paid $60 for a boner. I get that for free every morning. To me, strip clubs are kind of like feeding a hungry man plastic fruit. Ooh, yeah. You sure look hungry. Oh. Let me rub this plastic pear on your face. Yeah. No, you can't eat it. Give me $1. I got a baby to feed. I have a baby to feed. I got a GED. Baby to feed. That's the real story behind. That's a pro-woman stripper story. All right. Been living here in New York 2 years. The weather's nice. Been thinking about California. I lived in California like 4 years. I've been everywhere. West, east, done it all. Got to go surfing in California. Surfing's a dangerous sport, right? It's the only sport that involves a shark. An animal might come out and eat you during the game. No other sport has that. That's a different type of fear. That's like during the football season, every 3 or 4 games, a gorilla comes out of nowhere and just starts beating the living shit out of one of the players. Wouldn't that make Sunday morning a little bit more exciting? Listening to the game, watching the game. And Bledsoe drops back. Holy shit, is that a gorilla? He's beating the hell out of Bledsoe. Look at that, he just ripped his arm off and shoved it up his ass. What do you think of that, Boomer? I think it's a silverback gorilla. It's nice, a good-looking crowd. We have a very mixed crowd here. We got the Onion, we got flannels and tuxedos. We got everything here. Clap if you're in your 20s. You guys are in your 20s. Anybody in their 20s? Make some noise. Yeah, 20s. Raise some hell. That's what you do in your 20s. You just drink. That's all your 20s. You get some shitty job after college, and you're like, oh yeah. I'm in my 20s, I got a shitty job, I'm gonna get drunk. I'm gonna meet with my friends, we're gonna talk about our shitty jobs and get drunk. You hang out with dudes. You don't hang out with your dudes hang out. If you're dudes, you get drunk and start wrestling at 3 a.m. in front of your crappy apartment. Oh, I lost my keys, I'm drunk, I'm in my 20s. Oh. Full of Jägermeister in my 20s. Got a shitty job. I'm drunk. You hang out with chicks. That's what you do. You hang out with your dudes and your chicks. You don't make love. You fuck. That's all you do in your 20s. You drink, you fight, and you fuck. And then you lose your job. And you move back home with mom. Wake up at noon, mow the lawn. I'm in my 30s. Know how you party in your 30s? Coffee. All day long, that's all I do. Coffee. Strong coffee. Coffee. More coffee. Strong. Yeah, 30s. Yeah. 30s. Get it up. Get it up. Get it. Coffee. Coffee and smoking weed all day long. I'm scared and jittery all day long. Scared, jittery, and kind of horny all day long. I wake up, check my email, don't answer my cell phone, and hump the couch. Then I go get some pancakes. You know what I'm addicted to now? Iced coffee. Anybody else on this shit? Iced coffee doesn't even make sense, right? It's like hot snow. Iced coffee. Like if you came up to me 10 years ago, and if you came up to 22-year-old Rob, like, Rob, in 10 years you're going to be drinking iced coffee. I'd be like, fuck you, future man. How'd you get in my room? I like getting older. Everybody gets self-conscious about getting older. Oh, I like it. I don't care anymore. I just don't care. Like the other day I woke up with a big zit on my forehead. When you're 19 and 20, you're all bummed out. You're like, oh no. Susie's going to see my North Star. When you're in your 30s, you're like, oh yeah. I still got it. Check it out, ladies. Who wants to get it poppin'? Poppin' zits, taking ecstasy. That's the new shit. I'm just goofing off. It's all about your childhood. That's what I've been thinking about. It's all about, like my older brother, he was like the stud athlete in the town, you know? I was terrible at sports. I got athlete's foot on my dick. And school never really made any sense to me either. I never got good grades in school. And I used to teach kindergarten. I'd see myself in these kids. There's two types of kids in kindergarten. Kids with the regular pencils and kids with the big fat pencils. I was a big fat pencil kid. Spell your name, little Rob. R. I can't make the turn. Need a big pencil, yeah. O-B. I'm Rob. I eat glue. That's who I was, a glue-eating spaz. That's who I am now. It's just weed and iced coffee. Just a different version. So let's see. Growing up, you had a strict mom. I had to take, anybody have to take music lessons? Anybody here? What did you have to take, sir? Piano. That ain't shit. I had to take violin. Sucks. Yeah. Gangster shit right there. Violin. Going to public school with a funky violin case. Might as well kick this kid in the nuts on his forehead. I was terrible at it. I was forced to do something I wasn't supposed to be doing. Had to take violin for 6 years. Can't play one note. Every Saturday morning I was forced to be in a classroom with 18 Asian geniuses. They were all playing Mozart on Suzuki Book 29. I was over in the corner sucking on a piece of rosin trying to get high. Writing the word fart on the wall with a big pencil. Fart.
That was Rob Cantrell on stage in New York City for an epilepsy benefit. We have links to Rob's homepage and his MySpace page on our website at normalaudiostash.com. Rob will join us again here on the Audio Stash June the 8th to highlight his next Chronic Comedy show in New York City. That's taking place on June 12th. This has been NORML's Daily Audio Stash, the growing truth about cannabis. Visit our website at normalaudiostash.com. If you listen listen to the Audio Stash, vote for us at Podcast Alley or other podcast directory services. I'm your host, Chris Goldstein. Thanks for listening today. Everyone have a fun summer weekend out there, and we're back at 4:20 on Monday. The podcasting technology of NORML is made possible by Red Aphid Interactive Media. More information at redaphid.com.